Hey guys, welcome to Raw Customs Prop Tips. This episode we're going to be using some mesh and some LEDs to make some light up eyes. Now the main material you're going to need besides some LEDs is some yarn mesh, guys. As you can see, it's got some pretty decent sized holes that you can see through. Now this one actually is white and will reflect the light pretty well. However, I did find another one that is more translucent, so when the light hits it, it actually travels more through it, helping to light up the eyes just a little bit more. Now the main focus today will be on building the actual eyepiece. Now I actually did make it removable so it would come out, and I did this for a couple of reasons. One, if anything happens with the wiring, I can pull it out and work on it outside the helmet, making the job a lot easier. Number two, if I want to be able to see through the helmet better, I'm able to remove it and put it back on and walk around with it, particularly if I want to do anything on a video or walk around a cosplay or something like that. Now as far as the lenses themselves, guys, you can either glue them inside the helmet or you can actually glue them straight to your piece. Now you can use this method for other things like a laser visor. It's not just for the Iron Man helmets. Now in this one I actually did glue everything permanently in place. However, this is a piece that's easily to lift up a little bit or remove so that you can see a little bit better if you need to at the time. Well, alright guys, I hope this helps you out on your builds. Here's how to do it. You'll want to start by making a template for the eye area. You can use paper for this. I'm actually using a scrap piece of foam. You'll want to put your material on the inside of the helmet behind the eye area. Then mark any areas around the ends that need to be trimmed to allow your template to have a nice tight fit behind the eye area. If you have enough room, I recommend leaving an inch above and below the eye area. Once the template has been trimmed to fit, use some tape to hold it in place. Then you'll want to trace out both eyes. Once you have your eyes traced out, you can remove the template. Next, you'll want to draw a border around one of the eye areas that you've traced out. You'll want to add around 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Next, cut out the outside line as well as the inside line where you traced out the eye. Once you have the section cut out, flip it over and line it up with the other eye. Then trace the outside edge, and then cut it out. Doing it this way will make sure that both eye openings are the same size. Once you have your template ready, you'll want to transfer it to some 1/2 inch foam. I'm actually using your standard 24 inch by 24 inch floor mat. Lay your template in place on the smooth side, trace it, and then cut it out. Next, you'll want to use a heat gun to heat the piece on both sides. Then line it up in place inside the helmet and allow it to cool. Once the foam is cooled, it will hold its shape. Next, you'll want to grab your yarn mesh. This one's white and does reflect pretty well, and I think it'd work pretty good for something like a Spider-Man mask. But I'm going to go with this mesh, which is somewhat transparent. This allows the light to travel through the actual mesh. Line your mesh up on top of the eye opening and mark it. You'll want to mark the mesh larger than the eye opening itself. I recommend making the mesh at least 1/4 of an inch larger than the eye opening. Once you have your marks, you can cut the mesh to fit. For the lens, I'm going to use some film gel. This can be glued directly into the helmet, but for this example, I'm going to glue it onto the light rig. So to do it this way, line up your mesh on top of your lens, trace the mesh onto the lens, and cut out your lens. This way the mesh and the lens are the same size. If you're using a film gel, it generally comes with a protective coating. An easy way to remove this is just to use some tape at each corner and then peel it off. To glue your mesh and lens in place, I recommend using a hot glue gun. Apply glue to the outside edge, then line up your mesh and glue down the end. You'll want to hold the mesh in place until the glue cools. Next, apply glue to the remaining edge all the way around, then lay down your mesh and allow the glue to cool. Next, lay down a thin bead of glue on top of the mesh all the way around. Then line up your lens and glue it in place. To light up the eyes, I'm going to be using some LED strip lights. If you're not comfortable with soldering, you could get some strip lights that can be plugged into a power bank, and then cut the length where it could cover both eyes. If you go that route, you'll most likely need to make a channel between the two eyes for the light strip to set in, so that you can use one continuous strip of lights. For this light rig, I'm cutting the light strip to length for each eye. I'm cutting the LED length to where I have a LED on each side of the eye and running across the top. If your light strip has a rubber film on top, I recommend peeling it off. This will make the light strip a little more flexible. These are RGB lights, however, I'm only using the red light. Next, it's time to solder on your wire. I recommend adding solder to the connection points on your lights and to the ends of your wires before you start to solder them together. Once your wires are soldered on, hook them up to a power source and make sure all the LEDs are working. Now you can pull off the backing and stick the LEDs in place, running them around the inside edge. If you have trouble with the LED strip sticking to the foam, you can use hot glue to hold them in place. I did end up having to come back and do this on this light rig, however it was off camera. Once the two strips are glued in place, you can wire the strips together and to the wire that will be going to your power source. I recommend soldering all your ends together and then cover them with heat shrink or some electrical tape. This video is focused mostly on the eye area and not the wiring. I'll be covering that in a future video. To help secure the wires, you can hold them in place with some hot glue. As far as the lights go at this point, it's just a matter of hooking them up to your power source. On the back side of the rig, I glued down some thin craft foam over the LEDs to cut down on the glare. Now it's time to put the light rig inside the helmet. To hold it in place, you can use a small piece of foam and glue it to the inside of the helmet. You'll want to glue it in place where it's pressed up against the end of the light rig on both sides. Gluing in the blocks on both sides allows the light rig to be removable. And now you've got some cool light up eyes. Hope this video helps you guys out. Good luck on your builds, and thanks for watching.